The purpose of the annual public meeting is essentially to talk about our performance, our activities and our achievements for the last 12 months, the last financial year, i.e. to the end of March 2017, and to present our annual report to you and to go into some of the details inside the annual report. And the annual report tells you a lot more about what we've done and our successes and achievements and some of the challenges we face. So I'm here simply to introduce various members of the team, but what I want to do before I introduce the team to take you through the annual report is firstly to give you a bit of a format of the morning. So for the first approximately 20 minutes, Daniel and colleagues will present the detail of the annual report, and then we'll have questions from you about the annual report, about everything that's in the annual report, and we'll hopefully have a productive discussion about last year's achievements and so on. Following that, we will talk about the engagement programme, which we started on Monday, about the future options and possibilities for the Trust. And I know that there'll be a lot of people here who want to talk about that, and we'll talk about that in as much detail as we can. But that will be, if you like, in the second half. So the first half is very much about the annual report and the, if you like, the meet and drink about annual public meeting. Before we start, and before I hand over to colleagues, I would just like to say on behalf of the board as a whole, and particularly of non-executive director colleagues, a really big thank you to all the staff and all the teams here at the Trust. We have had a successful year. As many of you know, we met our financial targets, which was quite an achievement in the current context. But also, and much more importantly, we met our operational targets, particularly the 95% target to see people, 95% of people within 4 hours of A&E. We've had a number of huge successes this last 12 months, and you may notice that around the place there's lots of scaffolding and builders equipment, because, as I'm sure you're aware, we're just about to start on the biggest capital investment program that the Trust has seen for years and years to completely refurbish B&C blocks here to make them windproof, watertight, and much, much, much better for the patients. So it has been a good year in a very challenging environment for the NHS as a whole. And once again, I would just like to say a heartfelt thank you to all the staff, to everybody who works in the Trust, and of course to our volunteers for making it all possible. So that's it from me. So over to Daniel, who will take you through last year's annual report.
Thank you, Lawrence. So here we go. So my name's Daniel, I'm the Chief Executive. So this is Epsom and St Helier 2016-17 on one page. And all the highlights. So across the top, 95.3% of our patients were seen in A&E in 2016-17 within the 4 hours. That was the best performance of any hospital in London or the southeast of England, and the 7th best in the country. The little corkscrew going down on the piggy bank. Rakesh will tell you about the success in our money for last year, but we actually ended up with being the Trust that had the least spend on agency nursing staff in London for our District General Hospital, because of the extra 350 clinical staff we have recruited and maintained. Trevor is going to do a little slide of some of the big building projects we did last financial year. And in the top right, so we now have 1,000 patients on dialysis. That makes us the biggest dialysis provider in the country. Our catchment is the whole of South West London and Surrey and Sussex and parts of Berkshire. And then in total, last year, we saw 913,000 patient contacts in a year, which is considerably more than the year before. So those are the headlines for last year on one page. And then the more conventional way of doing it, reporting on the constitutional requirements. So yes, we achieved A&E. For 18 weeks in the month of March last year, we achieved it. And we have a trajectory to sustainably achieve 18 weeks starting partway through this year. For stroke care, we did not achieve the standard, and that's mostly down to the issues we're having with the hyperacute stroke service in Chelsea, which some of you will know about. And we're really happy to be able to tell you about these three metrics, because it is the first time in several years that we have consistently achieved all the cancer standards for the whole year. So more than 93% of people being seen within 2 weeks, more than 96% of people being treated within 31 days, and more than 85% of people being treated within 62 days. Other highlights, so the HMSR, that's the acronym for mortality rate. We remain as one of the safest hospitals in the country. And there's a national audit for hip fractures, which we'll tell you about more later, but we are the best provider of hip fracture services in London. And the slide the table at the bottom is called Patient-Led Assessment of the Environment. So every year we get an assessment done by a group of volunteers and professionals about what it is like to be a patient in terms of the food, the privacy, the cleanliness in the hospitals, and we're really happy to be able to tell you that on every metric we've got better on both sides in the year. But it's also important to say that these two, about privacy and about the condition and appearance, are a lot worse than our peers. So whilst we're getting better, we are a long way off achieving the best in the NHS in those areas. Trevor, tell us about how we spend £17 million.
Thank you, Lynn. So I think there's a key message about some of the work that we've done. We successfully delivered a new CT scanner, a second CT scanner for some Teleotype that gives us more resilience and means that we can see patients quicker and faster. We also delivered a brand new cardiology investigations unit at Epsom that's now co-located with our cardiology cath lab, which is the best thing to do. We also delivered a new paediatric audiology service within Primrose Hospital for Children. And we've also done some reconfigurations to improve the patient flow around on both sides of our acute medicine unit. On top of that, we've done an awful lot of work around behind the scenes sort of things like fire safety improvements, electrical infrastructure and our water services. And one of the biggest things we're pleased with, no one can really see, is that our water towers on the top of the hospital were replaced, and they were very, very old and desperately needed replacement, so we've actually improved the quality of our water as well.
Thank you. And then it's over to Charlotte to talk about quality.
Good morning, my name's Charlotte, I'm the chief nurse here. So every year we're expected to produce the quality account, and there are...
Can't hear you, Charlotte.
Do you hear me now? Lovely. So every year we produce the quality account. Our regulators ask us to pick some priorities, and we pick those along with our commissioners and with the public, and we have a big focus group to look at what are we going to look at this year. And these are quality indicators that impact on patient care and outcomes. So this is a look back over last year. So our first priority of 6 was to focus on infection control, and we managed to achieve our trajectory for Clostridium difficile, and we're on target again this year to do the same. MRSA, we didn't achieve that. The target is 0, and we had 6. But at this point last year, we're doing better this year. So at the end of last year, what we started along was a very strenuous improvement programme led by our infection control team, and we're already seeing the results of that, of improvements. Patients, unfortunately, do harm themselves if they fall in hospital, but I'm pleased to say that the work that our nurses have done in quite challenging environments, as you can imagine, is to reduce the numbers of falls, and particularly the falls that cause harm. And they do that through a multitude of different ways. And actually, the red line shows where they are nationally, and we fall below, excuse the pun, but we are below that national line. And there's a lot of work that takes place with that. We have 3 other priorities around embedding how we manage our acutely unwell patients, and I think with our consultant colleagues who do more ward rounds now, we've got more 7-day working, we've trained up a whole range of nurses and healthcare assistants to actually understand what they're looking for when a patient is beginning to deteriorate. We are much, much better at that, and that's reflected in what Daniel said earlier, our HMSR, which is our mortality, so we have better outcomes. We're reducing unnecessary hospital admissions and readmissions, and the work that we're doing with Exon Health and Care, and hope to start similarly with Sutton, has demonstrated real improvements with that. And continuously improving our patient experience is very dear to all our hearts. We've had good results on our friends and family, but also we've had 2 national surveys that have shown significant improvements on the previous ones, one for adults and ones for children. And finally, the priority we have, priority 6, is for our patients living with dementia. Now, last year we set up, at the end of last year, we set up C2, which is our dementia ward, which the League of Friends have very kindly helped us with a lot of equipment for. That's done so well, and as we now roll out our new estates work, we have a nurse aligned to Trevor's estates team, and we're making sure that the lessons we learned from C2, both in the environment and in how staff manage our patients with dementia, are rolled out through every refurbished area. And now I'll hand over to Rakesh.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rakesh Patel. I'm the Chief Financial Officer. Every year, Department of Health and our regulators, NHS Improvement, set us a number of targets, financial targets we have to achieve. And I just want to go through those very briefly and tell you how we did against those during the year. So the first one you see there is how we did on our income and expenditure budgets. And the department set us a target to achieve a deficit of £15.1 million. And in fact, we actually did better than that, and we posted a deficit of £12.7 million. And if you look on the slide, that compares to what we did the previous year, which was a deficit of just under £26 million. So not only did we do better than our regulators asked us to do by about 2.5 million, 2.4 million, we did significantly better than the previous year. One of the other things we are monitored on is this acronym called EFL, but essentially that measures how we manage our cash, a really important indicator. And again, we were given a target and we delivered against that target, as we did in the previous year. We've talked about capital investment, and again, that is a very, very highly monitored target, and it's again called capital resource limit there. But essentially, that means did we live within the resources we were given, the money we were given to invest in our medical equipment, in our infrastructure, and we did that as well. And we're all given another target, which is slightly perverse in the public sector, but we have to pay back 3.5% to the government, and we did that as well. So, in summary, all the targets we were asked to deliver, we either exceeded or delivered in this financial year. And how did we do that? During the financial year, the Department of Health set up a new financial regime, and as part of that financial regime, what they said was if you hit your operational targets, as we did for A&E, for example, and hit your financial targets, we will be rewarded by given sustainability and transformational funding, which we did, and we got £13.1 million during the year. And because we exceeded our targets, we were a handful of very few trusts in the country that got a bonus of £1.8 million. So that was in recognition of all the hard work in achieving both the operational and financial targets. But we also sold land as part of our ongoing estate strategy, and in consistent with the Department of Health's policy and guidance, we sold land as surplus at Sutton and made a profit of just over £11 million. And the key thing for me really is, going back to what Lawrence was saying, the hard work for all the frontline clinical and operational staff meant we were able to deliver our services in a different way and make savings of just over £13 million. And as Daniel said, we reduced our agency spend by £6 million during the year. So what does 17-18 look like? It's going to be equally as challenging, if not more so. And we've been given another target to deliver this year, and a deficit of just under £18 million. So we're 3 months into the year, and we're actually on track to do that so far. We have an aim and a target to deliver further efficiency savings of £15 million. So again, a really big challenge, but we put a lot of infrastructure and foundations in place in last year, and we're on track to do that. And as I said, we have an ongoing strategy to dispose of surplus land, and that's on the plans for 17-18 as well, on the agenda for 17-18 as well. And increasingly, we work very closely with our partners in South West London in the STP, and we're a key partner to that, and we'll continue to do that in 17-18. And that's a key element of delivering the financial targets.
And then Trevor is just going to tell you about the most ambitious capital plan ever for St Helier Airport this year. Excellent St Helier Airport this year.
Thank you, Dean. So I have the pleasure of actually spending the money that Rakesh is trying to keep hold of. And one part of my role as Director of State Facilities and Capital Projects is delivery of the construction and the capital projects. So we've already talked about the investment that we spent last year. This is an unprecedented amount of money that we're looking at, 22.5 million this financial year to spend, in effect, on our estate and medical equipment infrastructure. So just probably important just to note that we haven't secured all that money yet, but we are confident that we will do. Over half that is already secured, so we're working on the other, but we are confident that we've got a good case to demonstrate for that. Just give you a flavour of some of the work that we're doing. I think probably the most prominent one that Lawrence has already mentioned is the external refurbishment of blocks B and C. I've been here for 16 years and I've been challenging part of my role through my career in maintaining those buildings and trying to stop the damp and the water coming through those buildings. So for me, it's fantastic news that we've finally got some money to actually secure, to actually not actually do much improvement inside and addressing the challenge inside, but actually just to make it watertight. Probably just worth mentioning at this point is we are not putting cladding on that building. We're doing some insulation, wall insulation, and it's going to be re-rendered, and it's the highest level of fire protection that we can have. And we just also noted at that point is that we have undertaken some external investigation, external consultants to investigate the cladding on A block, and all our results so far is saying that it's not the same material as Grenfell, and actually it's all safe. So that's a really important message on that, and I think we are just waiting some work with the London Fire Brigade to give us that assurance, and then we'll publish something on our website. But we are very confident that our building, an A block, is safe in terms of that respect. Some of the other works that we are doing is that we are hoping to replace all of our lighting in our inpatient wards and clinical areas to LED lightings. So one that will improve the environment that the patients are in, but actually will improve our energy efficiency and reduce our carbon emissions. We're doing a lot of reconfiguration and providing new facilities for outpatients at Epsom, and predominantly they'll be moved between Woodcote and Langley Wing. at Epsom. We've also successfully looking at where we are at the moment, and some other areas of this, putting our new ITU, HDU critical care facility for this hospital in one location, very much constrained around the space and the layout of currently where it is on this site. We've invested heavily, and although probably not great behind the scenes, but we've done things like we have installed new washers for our endoscopes on the St Heliers site, and the work's just started at the Epsom site. We've also started a lot of reconfiguration and moving of services to allow us to put a new renal dialysis unit at the front of the hospital where was the current restaurant. And we've also just started work for a new adult audiology unit that will be fit for purpose and meet all the current standards here at St Heliers. I think also behind the scenes as well, there's a lot of stuff that we're still doing on our water services to make sure that they are maintained safely, electrical infrastructure, and we also continue every year to do a lot of work around our fire safety improvements. And just lastly, we are doing the usual work around our IT infrastructure, so we're spending £2.8 million even, on our IT infrastructure, and that's doing things like our server replacement and supporting our storage requirements, infrastructure and the network. And then on the medical equipment, we are putting £3.9 million into that. A big chunk of that is going to replace all our radiology X-ray equipment, but we also got a lot of money in terms of replacing dialysis machines, ultrasounds, echo machines, and some incubators for the trust, which are greatly needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trevor. That's the end of the formal part of our presentation to you of our annual report. So now I'm happy to, and the team are happy to field questions. Right.
Trevor, you're having spent 45 million, including 10 million that's been stripped out of it. If you had a new hospital, you claim you're spending nothing. You're presumably just spending bad money after good.
So I think obviously we don't have a new hospital, and any new hospital time it has to go through any process of approval, securing money and delivery.
A decade.
Yeah. So we have to ensure that we're maintaining our buildings as best as possible to continue providing the safe care we're providing at the moment. So we have to invest to keep those services running. If we don't do like the £12 million project for B and C blocks, we'll end up having to close walls, and we're having mould growing where patients are sleeping. That's not a good environment for us. But equally, what we're trying to do is address all of our critical risk and things like the boiler replacements. If I don't replace those boilers in the near future, we will lose those boilers, and that will mean heating and hot water can't be provided for our patients now. So it's about what we're trying to do in this investment is to keep us going for another 5.
But you'll always fail to keep up because of the intrinsic.
So I think we have a large backlog maintenance bill, and we were challenged to address all of those items. But what the Trust Board has done is looked at what their critical risks are and where our priority investments to ensure that we continue to provide safe care.
So I think we just need to come back and say we have not stripped £10 million out of Epsom. I don't know where you have that information from.
You told me that you were going to sell some property there, and you needed it to fill the cracks here. When I asked at the last question, the last meeting, whether that would mean that St Heliers would then be fit for purpose, everybody noticed that you didn't answer that question.
So we have a plan to sell our surplus land over the next few years, and we are expecting to invest all of the money that we get from selling the surplus land in both Epsom and St Heliers sites. So we are currently working on a plan for Langley Wing, for example, that will see it have an investment of almost £6 million into that building. And that will then enable us to provide some really amazing accommodation on the Epsom Hospital site. So there is investment going in on both sites, but where we are starting on this side is for the things that are absolutely mission critical to keep hospital services going by keeping the buildings safe.
Right, so there, then somebody said, yeah, thanks.
So you spoke about this investment. You said you haven't got it yet, but you're confident of getting it. So what's it dependent on? You're getting the funding. You need to give that.
So So we've applied to the Department of Health for this funding, and all hospitals go through the same process. It's quite a rigorous assessment process. We've been in the process for about 2.5 months now, and we're at the very end stages of that. And it's like any large investment, the government will ask us a number of questions which we answer. And we're, as I said, we're at the very end of that process, and we're very confident in the next couple of weeks we will get a positive resolution to that.
So there are essentially 3 steps. You have to get your local NHS to agree, so we've got that one. Then you have to get, because we're a London trust, you have to get the London system to agree, and we've got that tick. And now the London system has given it to the national team, and they're just doing the I's and T's with right at the top of the Department of Health and Treasury. So that's where we got to.
And this will come from direct treasury funding.
Yes.
So, Sandra next.
Could you explain the timescale? Because I've heard various references of how long these repairs are hoped to keep the hospital going for. I've heard keep it going 5 years, keep it going 10 years. Can you explain your timescale for this hospital, please?
So if I could talk about sort of the infrastructure work that I'm responsible for such like B and C block, I have assurances that we've got guarantees in place that will mean what we're doing is guaranteed for 20 years. So we're working around the timescale, certainly in our main block, of ensuring that it's fit for purpose investment we do for the next 10 to 20 years.
And is that how long you intend to keep it?
So I think that's a different conversation that I think Dane will come on to as part of our event later on.
Oh, well, okay, and another related question really. You said you've definitely not got any cladding, planning to have any cladding, but your booklet does say you intend to have cladding, which is the case.
So I think unfortunately when we started this project for B&C block has been going for 3 years, we unfortunately used the word cladding, and it's a very sensitive word, unfortunately. But I can assure you that we're not putting any cladding on blocks B and C. It's a minimal insulated, minimal rock wall insulation, and then a rend finish. There's definitely no cladding going on B and C
And
blocks.
nothing flammable in that.
There's nothing flammable. It's the highest rated fire retardant material that we could use.
Is there an air gap behind it?
There is no air gap, so the insulation is glued and fixed straight onto the existing structure, and then the render, it's got a mesh around it, and a render finishes onto that.
Sorry, you better.
Well, I've got a couple of very general questions, which is, I mean, do you have any shortfall from people coming to visit St Helier Hospital from abroad where you can't claim the money back, firstly? Secondly, do you charge patients that don't attend their appointments? And the third one, I'll wait for the first 2 answers.
So we have an overseas process for...
Can you repeat the question, please? Can you say what you're answering?
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
It's about overseas visitors.
The first question, Bob, is about whether we charge overseas users.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Rakesh,
So we follow national guidance and national policy, and we charge all overseas visitors who use our services. And we have a robust collection process that at the end, quite frankly, ends up us taking, if they don't pay on a timely basis, then we will take them to a debt collection agency who then on our behalf will chase the debt. So we are very robust in collecting our debt and very robust in actually identifying overseas patients.
Thank you.
and then the second question was, do we charge patients who don't turn up for appointments?
No, we don't. But we have the most robust ways of ensuring that the people that we book are able to come, including we send SMS text messages to everybody, and we do get some people don't quite like that, but we have ended up with one of the lowest do not attend rates in London as a result. I think you'll find that most clinicians think that outpatient clinics are very busy.
And the final one relates to, you are aware of the Accident Medical Fund, Equipment Fund. How much does that help you when you're buying new equipment. I mean, they raise a huge amount of money annually and so forth.
So Bess is in the audience. So through Bess's and team's massive efforts, I think is it over the years you've raised £4 million for Epsom Medical Equipment Fund?
Over 4 million, yes.
And it's quite a remarkable achievement, and we are very, very grateful for all the people in Epsom who have donated and for Bess's staggeringly good hard work.
But I've been stopped from buying anything at the moment because I retain ownership of.
I've been stopped from buying this at the moment, and our fund in 2009 drew up a legal agreement with the trust which was jointly signed and prepared to say that we would retain ownership so that it had to stay at Epsom. This is what the people of Epsom want, and they keep on asking me this now, and this is why I get the support, because they know the money they give is going to buy equipment which will benefit them.
Okay, well, best just to reiterate, we have had a conversation and we've met to discuss the issue around this. And it's not that we want to stop you from Epsom Equipment Fund providing any equipment. It's just that we need to do some work around some of the assurance and liabilities of who ownership and who's responsible if an incident happens. And we just want to put some governance around to ensure that both parties are protected if there's any adverse incident. And I think we've agreed that we're having a second meeting to try and resolve that issue.
So just
It seems to be taking rather a long time, doesn't it?
Just to be clear, we have no problem as a trust with people raising money for equipment to be used at Epsom Hospital. But there is quite a big issue which has arisen about who is taking responsibility for ensuring that the equipment that is raised remains safe. Because nearly all the equipment you are buying requires annual servicing, requires a maintenance contract, and if it went wrong, it would be, we need to ensure who is liable. Now, we as a trust thought that when you gifted us the equipment, we were taking that responsibility. You have now clarified that you aren't gifting the equipment to the trust, you are loaning it. And we have to resolve this because we think your charity could be liable for some really quite considerable issues, which is why we need to make sure that we find a way of enabling you to carry on raising the money, which we're very grateful for, but ensuring that the liabilities sit with the NHS and not with a small charity. And that seems really important to us to protect both our patients and you and your fundraising team.
It states it in our legal agreement that the trust are responsible. It's all laid out, everything. We had a very good lawyer or solicitor.
Thank you, Beth. Just get in there first.
About the rendering.
Sorry, I didn't have my friend.
Right, you know this rendering stuff? There's 6 different types with the same name from the company website. Some are suitable for over 18 metres and some are not. What reassurances and tests are you going to take to make sure that what you've asked for is what they actually put on the building?
So I think, first of all, we've done an awful lot of work over the last 3 weeks in giving ourselves some assurance around that. And we've employed specialist design team to design the system. And we've got a detailed report from them around the assurances around over 18 metres high. We're just doing some work. We've had the London Fire Brigade specialist hospital inspector also, who is very happy and assured. We're just trying to get all those people's reports together, and we'll put that information all on our website to give people assurance. But we are very assured that what we're spending money on is fit for purpose and doesn't impact on the fire integrity of the building.
And if your question was, how can we be assured that what we've specified...
Camden has apparently had an issue.
So we have processes in place that we will be assured that what we have specified is actually what is put up, and that's done by independent organisations, independent of the contractors and independent of us. So there will be a third party who will attest to the fact that what goes up is what we've asked for and nothing else.
But presumably you're talking about what you are going to do. Do you have the same assurances on what you've already done?
So I picked out that we've had specialist forensic fire investigators look at the materials on A block, And also some other areas we've got like maternity where that's not over 18 metres. And they've given us assurance that they will not that they not support combustion or flame, and those tests we believe are sufficient. We're just waiting for the London Fire Brigade Specialist Engineering Department to give us a view on whether they feel that's appropriate or whether we need to do any further investigations. But we feel with the evidence that we've got, the specialist consultants that we've used, and the information from London Fire Brigade at the moment, that we are safe and that we don't believe that we'll have to do any further work.
The Grenfell materials were assured in a paper exercise.
Materials weren't actually tested and they were given official clearance by so-called experts. The building that I'm talking about is Grenfell. The materials there were given an assurance, but not having ever been tested. So how are you so confident?
So we have actually undertaken physical testing with a flame to test that, and I think there's an awful lot of work that's been of improved guidance from the Cabinet Office and the London and the Fire Brigade Services, and also BRE, which is the Building Research Establishment, about what assurance and testing you need to ensure, and we believe that we've met all of those requirements.
Okay. So Dave next, and then we'll go.
Firstly, I'd like to say well done on the cleanliness improvement. That's very impressive. 99.39% I've jotted down here, and 99.32. I'd be very interested to know how that would place the trust in like a national ranking, because that seems very high. So well done on that front. I've got a few questions. Shall I run through them and then maybe you can answer them together? So, first question is, you mentioned the new CT scanner. Could you tell me, is that owned, or is that something you've purchased, or is it something that you essentially are hiring? And if so, who is the private provider? And I'd be very interested to know what the ongoing cost is for that, because I imagine there's maintenance agreements, etc. My next question, you mentioned, Trevor, that part of your role was to make the building watertight, but the video that the Trust released on Monday suggests that perhaps that job hasn't been finished yet, because apparently there is still some water ingress problems. So I'd be interested to know how long it will be until that job is completed. On the question of the cladding, you say that you've had tests done at BRE, which is good to know. Oh, sorry, maybe not. You did mention BRE.
We follow the guidance of BRE.
Right.
We haven't actually said.
Okay. If the cladding that you've already got does turn out to be fire safe, that's the first case in the country. Every other cladding that's been tested has had a 100% failure rate. So this should be breaking news. This should be all over the papers that you've got the only cladding in the country that is not a fire risk. So I'd like to hear more on that. And you also mentioned the boiler. And it's been mentioned at Trust Board meetings and public briefings before. I'd like to know when the boiler was originally installed, the boiler that you have right now, and how long that boiler's been running, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Can I start on So on the cleanliness front, yes, we are proud that we keep our hospitals clean. Our cleaning bill is at least £1 million a year more than it would be if we had a building that was designed to be a 21st century hospital. So we are not stinting on doing our very best to keep our patients clean and safe. And as a result, spend a lot more money. And if you read the CQC report, they commented on how amazing it was, how clean we kept these buildings, and they noted how much money we were spending on doing it. On the CT scanner front, we purchased the second CT scanner, and that was part of the capital that we spent last year. And as you know, there is quite a complicated amount of maintenance that you have to have on the CT scanner, and we have a very good standard of maintenance contract, which also includes all the consumables that are needed to run the CT scanner. The water tightness, yes, we do feature it on the video because it is a really big problem. It's going to take about 72 weeks when the scaffolding goes up to do the waterproofing. The fire safety stuff, so the cladding that is on A block is actually about 20 years old. So it is a materially different set of products than was used on these high-rise buildings. And the reason why we are doing so much work on it is clearly because there's much heightened concern, as you can imagine. And it is quite complicated to do the testing that we want done, because we want to make sure that what did happen at Grenfell, that it spread so quickly, will not happen to our cladding. And that is requiring a huge amount of quite complicated testing. And as we are not at the top of the priority list of quarries, which is why the fire brigade haven't yet come and sent us their specialist engineers, we have to wait in turn. But we are as concerned as you to make sure that there are no issues. All the evidence we've had so far suggests we do not have the same issues that were on that Grenfell tower. But we are waiting to get absolutely categorical assurance that that is the case before we answer the questions you keep asking us. Until we have the definitive answer, we don't want to give you the definitive answer in case it turns out not to be correct.
And you'll publish the test reports when they come back.
So we will make sure that we put very clear statement about the safety of that system when we finally have it. But we're telling you that to date, no one who has been involved in looking at it has raised any serious concerns about it.
So you'll publish the test reports when they're available?
We will definitely publish the very most that we can, but and we will hide nothing back. But we just want to understand what it is we're actually going to get at the end of it before before exactly which documents we publish and what we're allowed to. But we will make sure that we are as transparent as it is humanly possible to be. That is only there to our patients and to our staff.
Because the Prime Minister said that test results were being turned around in 48 hours. It's now a month since I first asked you about this, and initially you said you didn't have any cladding, and then I sent some pictures that showed that you do, and then I was told it would be 2 weeks, and here we are more than 4 weeks later, and still no results. So I'm very keen to get to the bottom of this one.
So are we, but we are not running a high-rise block of flats. We're running a 6-storey hospital, and there was a whole bit of due diligence that happened the week after that horrific fire, where all NHS hospitals had to complete a return about what we did and didn't know, and our hospital was not prioritised as one of the ones where there was likely to be an immediate risk. And therefore, all the resource that has been prioritised has gone to the hospitals where there is an immediate risk. And so they are coming to us because we're slightly lower down the order of where there could be an issue. So if there is an issue, I can assure you we will take definitive quick action. But none of the people involved are currently saying there is anything that anyone needs to worry about.
I'm conscious of time because we do want to move on to other matters, but so I'm just going to take the last couple of questions. So there.
About the boiler, sorry.
Oh, the boiler, yes, sorry. Sorry, I forgot the boiler.
So the boiler infrastructure was installed in 1937 and a major upgrade to the boilers was taken in 1970.
Sorry, surely the hospital didn't open until 1941, did it? The first patients came into the hospital in 1941.
It was before then.
The boilers were built right at the beginning of the construction phase, and as you know, it took rather a long time to actually finish building the building. So if people are interested, we can show you what the boilers look like. But if you can imagine the Titanic film and the steam-driven boilers on the Titanic, that is what it looks like, okay? It really does look like something out of the Science Museum.
It might do, Daniel, but it's still a fair question, or it's still a fair thing to say. First patients didn't come into this hospital until 1941, right? That's not a... And if you disagree, we will talk about it later.
I think the point is the boilers are very old.
I agree. But I don't like, I tell you why I'm saying this, it's because I see time and time again, Daniel, that you say that St Helier Hospital is older than Epsom Hospital. I would like to disagree, and I would like you to agree that I'm correct. Right, please.
So,
answer the question.
So there are parts of Epsom Hospital which are older than St Helier Hospital. The vast majority of Epsom Hospital is much newer than St Helier Hospital. The St Helier Hospital estate is pretty much was all built between 1937 and 1941 and hasn't really changed since then. Epsom Hospital has had a number of buildings built over time.
Oh, it's been going since 1700 and something, Daniel. I mean, it's a little bit older.
Luckily, there's no buildings from 1700.
Sorry, I'm confused. So major work was done, what, 30 years after the original boiler was put in?
Large parts of the infrastructure were, sorry, thank you. So the boiler kicked off, let's say 1940. In 1970 there was some work done on the boiler. That's a long time ago. It's 2017 now. So it was deemed necessary to do major upgrade works after 30 years. Why has more upgrade works not happened at least 30 years after that, which would have been the year 2000? Well, it sounds like we're getting a lot of life out of this boiler.
So I think what you're just giving us a beautiful segue into is why we need between 300 and 400 million pounds to update the entire infrastructure that Epsom and Helier patients are being treated in. So I think that's a perfect segue to the next section.
It is, but I'm just going to take two final questions here, so there and there and there.
Forgive my ignorance. I don't think that's fine.
Sorry, Lawrence, you did say you'd come to me.
Okay, I will one day. If I said that, I'll do it. So there and there.
Forgive my ignorance, I'm used to business accounts, so I don't understand why the finance director is asking us to celebrate a deficit of only 13 million. So I just want to understand what is a good deficit and what is a bad deficit, what's sustainable.
So we need to understand why we have a deficit.
I think you do need one.
So we need to understand why we do have a deficit, and this is the public sector rather than the private sector, and we have a different financial regime, and it is really important that we work within this new financial regime. And as part of that, it has been agreed by our regulators, NHS Improvement and the Department of Health, that they acknowledge that the way we deliver our services, the way our buildings are, for any number of reasons which we'll come to later, I suspect, there is no way we can post a surplus. So the question then is, what is the level of deficit that our regulators deem to be appropriate for running our services? And it was £25 million last year, and this year was just over £12.5 million. And that improvement has been acknowledged by everyone, that given the way our services are, that is, I didn't use the word celebration, I'm not using that word, but it's an amazing achievement by our staff.
Dave.
Thank you. A couple of things. These slides, are you going to provide us with copies of them?
We put them on the website, no problem.
Okay, thanks. That would be helpful. Some meetings you go to, you actually have the printout, so it's easier for some people to follow what you're talking about on the slide. Some of them are quite difficult to read sitting here. I was a bit puzzled about how we got year-on-year surpluses and deficits. Your attempts to reduce the surplus, you've got so-called efficiency cuts imposed, and at the same time you're talking about making a surplus. I don't understand how a hospital can make a surplus. It should be spending its operating costs, and that should be the end of it, and living within its means. But
So I think, Dave, what we're trying to say is we can't live within our means if we're going to carry on.
How can you have a surplus?
So we don't have a surplus, we have a deficit. We halved the deficit last year, but the cumulative deficit this organisation has now racked up is almost £70 million. And by the time we get to 2020, we will have exceeded a £100 million deficit. And what you have here is a trust board that is absolutely committed to providing high quality patient care, and we're not sacrificing that to deliver a surplus.
Why was the word surplus on one of the slides?
It really wasn't.
Yes, it was.
Well, it might have said surplus and then written the number in brackets, which means negative, which means deficit. But we really have not made a surplus.
That's really kind of why I'd like to see the actual slides. Now, Sutton land you're proposing to sell, what particular part of Sutton? We've seen in the papers they're going to have a Harris Academy built on the site. You've indicated a possibility of putting some kind of facility instead of the ones that we need at this hospital and Epsom. So what land are you actually talking about selling at Sutton? How much acreage?
So 2 years ago, we sold to Sutton Council 1.6 hectares to enable them to have the land to build their secondary school. Last year, we sold them 3 hectares, 4 hectares?
3, I think.
3 hectares. And we're planning to sell them an equivalent amount this financial year too. So when we get on to the next bit, you will see that there is a scenario we think we would wish to carry on pursuing about having a co-located hospital with the Royal Marsden. We would have sufficient land left at Sutton to enable that scenario to happen if that is where we ended up. And if it isn't where we ended up, then Sutton Council would like to buy that land as well.
So how much land would that residue be after all those disposals?
It's about 2 hectares we have left.
So the total is 5.7 hectares.
The
total land, but we've sold part of that. So I think what we're retaining is about 1.7.
Sorry, the total land you've sold is how much?
Right. So the total site that we did have was 5.7, and with reductions and proposed disposal that we're looking at, we probably have about 1.5 to 1.7 hectares left.
Sorry.
This doesn't make sense. I've just heard that you sold 1.6 hectares, then you sold 3 hectares, and you're planning to sell another 3 hectares, and you only had 5.7 to start with, but you're already up to 7.6, and you're saying that there'll be 1.7 after that.
I think we'll just, at our next board meeting, we'll put up a table of the size of the Sutton site and the different plots, and then you can see it, because otherwise we're going to go on for quite a long time.
Final question this part. Thank you.
With regard to surplus land and land sales, how do you decide what is surplus? Because
I'm sure that many people would have said that the Sutton site wasn't actually surplus because we used that hospital. And obviously the sales of the past aren't going to have been included in this, but under the terms of the NALO review, you should be getting a 2-for-1 on land sales. Are you going to be getting that?
So the government have not confirmed that they have supported the NALO.
Theresa May did.
They've confirmed that they support the principle that the NHS should not be maintaining land that is not being used for healthcare. They have not supported this idea that for every £1 that is released, the NHS gets £2 back. And we have received no indication that a decision on all that will be made in the near future. So we are carrying on with our current plans, and the thing that is really important about our current plans is that with an organisation that has such a large deficit, it should be that if you sell land, the money goes to pay off your deficit. Well, because we have so successfully made the case that our buildings need lots of investment, we're being allowed to keep all of the land proceeds to invest in our buildings. And that is part of the final bit of decision making that is going on in answer to an earlier question. So we wouldn't be signing a £14 million contract with Bree and Carillion to repair B and C blocks if we hadn't been given permission to keep 100% of the land sale from last year at Sutton to do it.
And how long can you keep chipping away at the foundations of your building to pay for putting a new roof on before the whole thing collapses? I mean, how much can you cut the provision of NHS land in a growing population with growing needs and ageing population? How can you keep on selling the land and still providing a health service?
Well, there's another perfect segue into why we have to have a future for Epsom as post-2020.
I think that's right, and I think now looking at the clock, we will move on to the next part of this morning's agenda.
So, we're really, really excited that we were able on Monday to launch an engagement exercise on Epsom St Helier 2020 to 2030. We've only been able to do this for two big reasons. So the first one is our staff are just incredible, and in the last 2 years we have transformed what it is like to be a patient in Epsom St Helier. So you've already heard that we have become the best provider of emergency care in London, and you've been hearing how we've been systematically reducing our deficit and getting our finances to be stable. That has given the rest of the NHS the confidence to let us talk about our future. So I'm standing here today to be able to tell you about that because our three clinical commissioning groups, so Merton, Sutton and Surrey Downs, who buy the majority of the healthcare from Epsom and St Helier, want us to talk about our future. We're in two of these things called STPs, Sustainability and Transformation Partnerships. This site is in one in South West London. Epsom is in one called Surrey Heartlands. They're both supportive of us talking to our communities about our future. And then the two regulators of the NHS, NHS England, who regulate the Commission, and NHS Improvement, who regulate the providers like us, also want us to do it. So the conversation we want to begin, we've written down in this book, an involvement document. It's about 30 pages, you've got it in front of you. But in one page, this is what it says. We would like between £300 and £400 million to build a new specialist acute facility for you and for our staff to work in. And then rather than doing death by PowerPoint to explain it all, we've made a film, and I would hope that not everyone has watched the film already because we're going to show it to you. And that will take 10 minutes. And then I'll have a little bit from James, as our medical director, about why this is so important and the key messages, and then we'll get into questions. Now, we've got to make the technology work. Is it the same as before? Sometimes this works, and sometimes it doesn't. Come on. No sound. For hospitals. I and the 5,000 other people who work in Epsom St Helier. Hello, my name is Daniel, and I'm really privileged to be the Chief Exec of your local hospitals. I and the 5,000 other people who work in Epsom, St Helier and Sutton hospitals are passionate about wanting to deliver great care to every patient every day. We've come a long way in the last few years to improve our patient safety, to recruit more staff, and to stabilise our finances. And now, in fact, a remarkable 92% of our patients say they would recommend the care and treatment we deliver to their friends and families. However, we have a really big challenge with our buildings. We want 21st century facilities so we can provide the highest standard of care for you and your family now and for decades to come. And to do this, we need your help. We really are at the very beginning of a process that will take very many years, which is why we've called this Epsom and St Helier 2020 to 2030. We genuinely want to hear your views because we in NHS have made no decisions. And it goes without saying that we fully intend to keep our commitment to keep both Epsom and St Helier hospitals providing services as they are now, whilst we do all this work with you on planning for the future.
This is our female surgical ward on the top floor in one of the blocks at St Helier. As you can see, the beds are very close together. The ladies are sitting side by side, which doesn't afford much privacy at all. There's no toilet facilities or ensuite bathroom here. They have to go out, down the corridor and round the corner to use the bathroom. And I think the main thing is that the risks to infection control are greater because the bed spaces are smaller. In a modern day purpose-built building, they would not be allowed to build this with the beds close together. So the windows have been replaced, but they are still very drafty, and when it rains, water will come through the ceiling, so we have to move the beds away from the walls. If a patient needs to go to operating theatre and they have to go on their bed, we can't fit the beds in some of the lifts, so we have to take the patient through one ward to the bigger lifts to get to them, which is not a good experience and is not good for infection control at all. Sometimes we have to take our patients outside to go to X-ray or for a CT or MRI scan, and sometimes if it's raining, we have a lot of problems with the water in the basement. So in some cases, we have to use an ambulance to transport a patient from one end of the hospital round to the other.
Just getting around the hospital, that's a big hindrance. Like, you know, if there are puddles in a link tunnel, lifts breaking down, lifts are constant use, you know. What happens there? It hinders the porters, can't do their jobs, can't get the patients to where they need to go.
Orthopaedic Centre known as Swelliop. We were set up around 14 years ago, purpose-built with the needs of orthopaedic post-operative patients in mind. The space was designed so that we could actually get beyond the problems we used to have in the old days of trauma and orthopaedics, of tripping over lockers and tables and not enough space. So we now have lots of room so we can get the patients out of bed, whichever side is appropriate for their operation, and mobilise them safely. We don't have the beds too close together. We also have the facility of several side rooms on each ward, so if we do come across anybody with an infection, we can isolate immediately. Each bed is curtained off separately, and there's a toilet for each base, so we protect dignity and give the patients confidence. We can keep the place cleaner because we're new and purpose-built. And it's just been, as I said, designed as a pleasant, airy, light, open, happy environment.
So we give great care and we aspire to give a great experience to all our patients every day. But if we have a much better environment, we know that our patients would have a better experience whilst they're in hospital. It would be much, much easier to nurse in a better environment. We'd be able to observe our patients much better, and we then would know that we were doing the best we possibly could in the best environment there.
As close to home as possible is a key priority, most importantly for our patients and for us as an organisation. And actually we've made great strides to that effect with the development of Epsom Health and Care and working as part of the Sutton Vanguard project.
He needs a ventilator, and he needs a motorised toilet.
There's four partners who have all come together to work around a single patient. So rather than different services needing to be accessed by one patient, all of the services can sit around a person. So specifically to do with our team, the at-home service as a completely new way of working within this area. We have a team of GPs, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, nurses, social services, healthcare assistants, and all the support that sits around that as well, which allows us to support people out of hospital earlier than previously would have been we'd been able to.
For the majority of patients, and we would estimate that around 85% of patients, most of the healthcare can be delivered at home or close to home most of the time. But when things are acute and the patients deteriorate, then there are real benefits in being cared for in a state-of-the-art centre. One, for example, could look at the outcomes of our patients who fracture the hip bone, fracture neck of femur. The outcomes are exemplary. I think centralising the hip fracture service has had a significant impact on the quality of the service we're able to deliver for our patients. It means that all the specialists are based on one site, so you have senior orthopaedic consultant surgeons, myself, and I'm the consultant orthopediatrician, the therapy team, the specialist nurses, all are on one site, so we can develop our expertise and really deliver a very high standard of care to our patients. To give you one example, our mortality rate has come down from 12% in 2012 to just 4% in 2016, which is well below national average.
We've seen that there are benefits already by consolidating our services in the hip fracture unit with much better outcomes. Patients with the most complex needs really do benefit from getting access to our consultants very early on in the course of their treatment. Working on a single site gives better access to immediate consultant review, access to diagnostics such as CT scanning or MR scanning much faster than we would do if we worked on 2 different acute sites. Our aim of working on a single acute site in purpose-built accommodation means that we can deliver the best quality care and exceed the national standards.
Our initial review suggests that 3 scenarios should be considered for more detailed analysis. In each of these scenarios, 85% of our patients will still be cared for at Epsom and St Helier hospitals. And then there will be a specialist acute facility at one of our sites. St Helier. In the next few years, we will have repaired many of the buildings, and there is the potential to build a new acute block on land around the existing main building. Epsom. The existing buildings require the least investment to bring them up to the required standard. Sutton Hospital, co-located with the Royal Marsden. This site provides the opportunity to improve cancer services for our patients by co-locating our cancer services with the Royal Marsden's. I hope that you've now seen how our buildings are not fit for delivering healthcare in the future. In fact, 43% of our buildings are deemed to be unsuitable. We've also shared with you why we think a new specialist acute facility on one of our sites would enable us to provide the highest standards of healthcare for you and your families in the decades to come. We know how passionate our local communities are about their local NHS, and we know that if we're going to secure the hundreds of millions of pounds of investment, we need your support. At this early stage of the process, we want to engage with as many people as possible to find out what you think. We genuinely want to hear your views, so please get involved. You can email us, you can write to us, you can join us at one of our forthcoming events, or you can even invite us to come to your local group. And just to reiterate, whilst we do all this work, we are committed to keeping Epsom and St Helier hospitals fully open. Thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you.
No, it's not wonderful at all to be in hospital, but you get the service here that you wouldn't get anywhere else. They're wonderful.
Hello, my name is Daniel, and I'm really privileged to be the chief exec of your local hospitals.
Don't try again. It's quite sufficient.
Hello, my name's not Daniel. I'm James Marsh. I'm one of the 2 joint medical directors, and on the film you also saw Ruth Charlton, who's the other joint medical director. I just want to summarise some of the key points from the video and the presentation. So we are proud that at present we are the best provider of emergency care in the capital, and we are increasingly being nationally recognised when we go to meetings for our performance in emergency care. However, our buildings are not fit for future modern healthcare. 43% of them are deemed not suitable. We need funding for a new acute hospital to care for our sickest and most complex patients in a modern environment. We want to keep this facility on one of our 3 existing hospital sites. In each of the scenarios that we propose, we really want to offer the vast majority of our care locally for you. And we anticipate that at least 85% of the care episodes can be delivered at either the Epsom or St Helier sites, whatever the final scenario is. We are right at the start of a very lengthy process which will take several years, and it's really important to hear your views. It strengthens our case if we have the support of our local population, so please do get involved.
Support from the staff?
I'll say that too. Over the course of this week, we've been engaging with our consultant staff and our senior nursing staff, and we've had really good, robust discussions and debates, and we've got absolute endorsement from all of our senior clinical medical staff, and I think, Charlotte, you've been having discussions with the senior nursing staff, and they are very much behind this process.
Thank you. It's clearly a very, very important step that we've taken, but as James and indeed as the video has showed, it's a long process, and this is just the first part of what will be a very long process. So I'm sure several of you will have some questions now, and we've got some time to start the discussion. So Rosemary, would you like to start?
First of all, just to say that when you look at the state of the buildings, I think your infection rates are really good to only have six MRSA cases. Very good. My concern is the southern side is geographically fine for both ends of the trust, but you'll remember when we looked at the Darcy report and looked at all the professional opinion for maternity, if you have included that in the acute side, then whichever end of the trust, if it wasn't the southern side, would have this difficulty of getting to the other hospital in the time that it took. If they're in a difficult labour, they're coming by car, public transport in the rush hour. So what discussion have you had about that? Because that's going to be critical, I think.
Firstly, in terms of the infection control, you're absolutely right that we've made huge progress in our infection control. However, sadly, I do disagree. I'm not happy with 6 episodes of MRSA.
No, not what I'm saying is that given the state of some of the buildings, I think that you've done very well to reduce it so much. So, I'm not saying it's a good thing to have any cases.
So we're in violent agreement about that, but we really want to eliminate MRSA. In terms of maternity provision, Ramesh, I don't want to put you on the spot. Are you happy to make a comment? We've got our clinical director for obstetrics sitting in the audience, so he might be able to give some comments about the safety of the transfer, and I'm very happy to contribute.
I'm Ramesh Ganpati, the Clinical Director for Maternity Services. This has to be looked into the context of the current report that came out, and the whole of maternity services across the land is being altered in a way that we're trying to deliver community services for midwives locally, trying to increase the amount of midwifery-led centers, home deliveries. Then you look at the proportion of women that will actually require in-hospital care, which is the inductions and the ones who are high risk for other reasons. So if you actually narrow them down, the proportion that, if it pans out as the changes in maternity transformation programs that are happening, the proportion that will have in-hospital care will be fewer. I could be completely wrong, and the winds could change and everyone wants to deliver in a hospital, but an increasing proportion of women who are low risk may choose to have midwifery-led center births, home births. There is a drive towards having a common community hub of midwives that's happening at the Surrey patch with us, which means that 3 hospitals, 3/4, will consolidate their resources to have community care. When we're talking about the acute delivery aspect, then yes, I can't change the geography of Sutton, but I think the proportion of women who need access to that will be fewer than the current trend of all 5,000 odd women delivering on the hospital site?
I mean, the difficulty is that it is the people that are going to be in a difficult labour that we're talking about.
Sure.
And if you look at the Darcy report, the whole consensus was that you've got 24 minutes before what they call euphemistically an adverse happens. And so it's always been our argument in Epsom that we need to keep our maternity because of that, because just geographically we are not near enough to anywhere else. Now, if the acute site was in Sutton, it's about 15 minutes to the Marsden. A bit further if you live to the west of Epsom. So that would be a sticking point if it was at St Helier, just because of the distance and for these high-risk people.
I don't think when we are speaking about the options, I don't know which option will pan out, but the acute site itself, if it does transpire that happens at a Sutton hospital, becomes equidistant for...
But yes, I said that at the beginning.
Yes.
That's fine. It would be if that's not affordable, because obviously you didn't actually specify, Daniel, about which one's more expensive and everything, but if that's not affordable, then we're in the second sort of...
Although I'm CD for both sides, I do a lot of work at the Epsom site. That's how my job plan is. We are not going to alter anything in Epsom maternity, but if the acute site comes, there will be a proportion of women who will require care in an acute high-end hospital as the maternity aspect, and how the rest of the low-risk women as such will have care delivered, whether it's a midwifery-led centre or a birth centre, is something that will have to be looked at much further down the road. But I don't think the plans for an acute hospital will affect the women at Epsom, because as it stands now, till the grand plan for the next 8 to 10 years pans out, nothing's going to happen to Epsom maternity.
But you are, sorry, I'll let you move on, but you are including maternity in the document that I've read, so I think it needs discussion at the outset. Yeah.
So at this stage of the engagement process, the conversation we want to have is about, do people support us in trying to keep as much care delivered at Epsom and St Helier sites as possible? And then have we made the case which says a single acute site would improve people's care? The three scenarios we put up, they all have their pros and cons, and lots of people can think of what they might be. If you would like to give us your views about which site, then that's fine. But the important bit we're wanting to have a conversation about at the moment is, do you think we've made the case that we would improve the care for our sickest patients? And what you have, James and Ramesh are both articulating, is there is a very big clinical consensus in this organisation that we would improve the care for our sickest patients if we were providing it from a single specialist facility as opposed to two. So the conversation we want to have is about that for now, and if we're able to get to the next bit about sites, let's do that later down the track. But all three of the scenarios we put up are all deliverable.
So you haven't spoken yet, so
Yeah.
go on the microphone.
I shouldn't think so, I've got a big mouth. First of all, are you anticipating any private patient facilities in the new hospital? And secondly, have you got any idea how far down the line it's going to be before you'll know which site that it's going to possibly end up at?
Yes, we are expecting private patients in the hospital. We have private patients now. I think it's quite early to tell about where we will end up with a preferred scenario. I think if it goes to the plan that we have, we do the engagement until the end of September. We're doing the financial analysis of the three scenarios as well. We aim to have something called a strategic outline case that we will publish in October, which will pull together everything that we have heard. We submit that to our commissioners and to NHS England and NHS Improvement. I'm hoping that the document is compelling enough that they say they want us to do a lot more work on the detail. If they say that, it will take us until next summer to do the next level of detail that is required, because you're getting into the actual design of the facilities that you wanted to build, so to know that they would definitely work and that they are definitely affordable. And assuming we are able to get to that part of the process, I would imagine we do a formal public consultation on what we think the
front-running options are next autumn.
That's when it becomes them and us.
That's what.
That's when it will become them and us, because St Helier obviously want to stay here, Epsom want to stay where they are. So that's when the battle lines get drawn up.
I want it at Epsom and St Helier. I don't want one or the other.
I want both of our hospitals, and I'm amazed that you're actually managing to spin this as, do you want to get stabbed or shot? And you're giving us that option as if it's a wonderful achievement. I want to keep the facilities we've got. I want, when somebody is in labour somewhere, and they suddenly need a caesarean, I want that caesarean option very close to where that woman's having that baby. I actually approve of home births, but only when there's a hospital very close should that emergency arise. And I don't want, when my daughter was pregnant, having her baby, they were getting her to sign the permission form as they were running her down the corridor. I would not like to be in a position where that young lady had to travel many miles to a more distant operating theatre. I think it's an appalling suggestion, and it's clearly money-based. You cannot convince us, the public, that we want one centre when we've got two. How can that be a good thing? It can only be a good thing for financial reasons.
I want patients to have the best facilities that they can. If it means going to one hospital, we're not going to get an option on that.
Well, I think
there's money. You can't just pull money out of the sky. There's got to be limits somewhere. And if we lose,
you can. You can find £1 billion for the DUP for 10 votes.
This austerity is a myth anyway, but I think that we should be arguing about improving the sites that we've got and not losing one or two sites.
And we can have that, and we can afford that, and this austerity is a myth, and STP is the reason we're being asked to save £22 billion nationally. It's a fifth of the NHS budget, and that's what this is about. It's not about better facilities, it's about fewer and worse facilities, and half of them being for private patients.
I wonder if I could just make a comment about some of the potential benefits of having a single acute site and concentrating our clinical staff, the whole of the team, together around patients in the most need. I think over recent years, the nature of medicine has become increasingly complex. We've had huge technical advances, and the decision-making about appropriate intervention has become quite challenging and relies on whole teams working together to make these decisions in very prompt ways. We've already seen in London centralisation of hyperacute stroke services. And through this process, the outcomes for the population of London who unfortunately suffer a stroke has improved significantly. And through this model of care, London is one of the leading parts of the country in terms of stroke survival. We also see that for people who have acute heart attacks or need for acute vascular intervention, that care is centralised in specialist centres. This is the direction of travel so that we can have a critical mass of staff available to make decisions at an early time for these really complex situations. And that's one of the reasons why we think it's better to have a single acute site for you as the whole of the population served by Epsom and St Helier.
Hang on. The government are publishing on television the statement.
There is currently running on television a public information film about stroke saying seconds count. You're talking about the addition of many minutes. There is no such case. It will certainly be the case that those people who arrive in a properly staffed and properly equipped centre will have better outcomes, but those that don't make it there probably aren't being counted.
So the conversation that we need to have is about what is the available clinical workforce in the NHS. We're not having a conversation about how much money gets put into the NHS. We have to have a conversation which says, can we actually deliver all of the 24 hours a day, 7-day-a-week quality standards that we have been set
you're doing it
in our current service configuration? And what we can demonstrate is in the acute services which we have already been able to consolidate, like the hip fracture unit, we end up being able to provide the most exemplary standards of care, and we end up being the best. And our pitch is only to say to our 500,000 people, we want to be the best for all the acute services, and with our workforce, we can do that in one place. Now, my question to you, Keep Our St Helier Hospital campaign, is one of the scenarios we have put forward is to build the new specialist acute facility here. Will that not have, if we do that, kept our St Helier Hospital safe? And why aren't you championing it?
That's the name of our campaign, it's not the aim of our campaign.
So your aim is not to keep St Helier?
The aim of our campaign is total. We should have an NHS that provides emergency services as soon as possible. You are doing that now at more than one site. There is no case for increasing the delay in treating emergency cases. It doesn't matter how far people have to travel for elective services apart from visitors.
So let me just
journey matters.
You're not into keeping St Helier Hospital safe?
We are very much here to keep St Helier Hospital safe, absolutely. But
so I'd like you to join us
to do that at the expense of any other community.
We do not want to keep St Helier safe if other people are worse off. That is not our aim. We are not selfish. We are wanting to keep our St Helier and any other hospital.
Would you join us in wanting to secure £300 to £400 million of investment to enable all the patients who use Epsom and St Helier hospitals to have their care provided in the best buildings that the NHS?
At a greater distance, no. And you know as well as I do, when hospitals lose their acute services, the rest of the hospital usually withers and dies anyway. And we've already lost the Nelson and the Wilson and the Sutton Hospital. We do not want to lose St Helier and Epsom Hospital as well and end up with one major acute centre like they had in Northumbria, and it's been a total disaster for Northumbria.
So I think that what you have here is a trust board who equally don't want to lose acute services for their local population. And we are absolutely determined we don't go back to better services, better value, which was the last the last review, which said that since the buildings at Epsom and St Helier aren't suitable for the future, then we should move the acute patients to other hospitals.
The rest of the services. You spent a lot of time in that video telling us, and in the past you spent 300 million through Deloitte,
explaining to us why our hospitals are not fit for purpose. The rain comes in, the windows you've replaced are drafty and rubbish, bad contract there, but you're spending a lot of time telling us our hospitals are not fit for purpose, as if that's the reason for an acute centre. What happens to all the other services? Where are they going to be provided? In these buildings that are not fit for purpose?
Does delivering the best service in London?
Yeah.
So if one had the biggest blank cheque you could imagine, we'd love £1 billion to replace everything. The building that we most need to ensure that we are providing the highest quality care is for our sickest patients, and we estimate that will cost between £300 and £400 million. The money that we're spending on the buildings now keeps them functional and safe. So if you go back to the beginning of the video and you saw, can you remember Charlotte was standing by one of the 4-bedded bays in one of the wards here, and how close the patients were together?
No, well, actually, while we're talking about that video, what I saw was where you would normally in the ward have cabinet, bed, chair, you chose to organise it cabinet, bed, chair, bed, cabinet. Why did you do that? Those people didn't have to be sitting in each other's laps, and that's not what you normally do.
Because that's the only way that it fits. So imagine imagine this site in the scenario that we have a brand new several £100 million facility here. So you would be looking from the main road at the existing buildings and then a fantastic facility right next door.
Lovely, yes please.
Okay, thank you. So it'd be very great. We would be very grateful if you would come out and say that would be a good thing to do.
That would be a good thing in our area, yeah.
And then what you would do with the bays that we currently have, which you have too many people in them, you'd be able to halve them. So you only have 2 patients in the space as opposed to 4. So that then you could then put in the infrastructure to make it appropriate for patient environment going forward. So that's what you would do with this building once you have made it safe.
So what you're saying is...
There's lots of other people who want to talk, so there, and there. So start over here, and then we'll work our way across the room.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm getting to feel I'd like to see Epsom and St Helier. Of course, I'm favouring Epsom and St Helier. But going back in time, I've had experience of having quite serious operations, and I can see the benefit of a critical care facility that's got everyone in a situation to cope with that. And I know we can't do it at both St Helier and Epsom, so I'm half in favour of saying let's keep the Sutton, because that's practical. If you're a patient in that sort of situation, you don't really care whether anyone comes to see you or not, because in some instances you're not aware of people coming in. But after you've recovered or whatever's done to you is done, it's the follow-up situation. And I think that's my worrying point, is if you have a major incident where you go to this critical care place and you're dealt with and everything's all right, 99% of the time you've got to go to follow-up appointments, sometimes just for a couple of weeks, sometimes for months, and sometimes it's for the rest of your life. Would that then mean that both St Helier and, more importantly to me, Epsom will still have those facilities for follow-up appointments?
Yes, absolutely. So what we are very keen to do is to have as much care close to your homes as possible. We envisage that the vast majority of outpatient attendances, for instance, would still be retained at the Epsom and St Helier hospital sites, and we currently provide lots of other outreach outpatient services as close to people's homes, and that's what our intention would continue to be. Furthermore, there are many people who are currently in our hospital beds who are going through a process of prolonged rehabilitation, who are not yet fit and strong enough to get home and are on the road to recovery. And I think many of those people would be preferred to be looked after in a slightly different, less busy environment where they have a different access to different types of carers, more therapists and more nurses available to support that rehabilitation, and would probably like it as close to their home as possible. And in such scenarios, we'd like to keep beds available at Epsom and St Helier Hospital in any of the scenarios for that part of your care.
So,
sad 63-year-old that I am, I've always lived within 3 miles of Sutton, so I understand the world does not look like the shape of the trust map that you said, and I'm afraid I'm a bit them and us. Christine had to leave at 7:10 to get to this meeting. I've incurred an £8 parking fee to come to this meeting, though kindly the directors waived that. This has the difficulty. In Epsom, we're geared up to visit places outside London or to get into central London. Getting here is a nightmare. It's not where the communication links are. I think scenario 6 is what's needed. This building is never going to be suitable. It needs to be allowed to crumble, and therefore we need to come to the solutions which suit the links within London for the people who live here, and the links within Sutton, within Surrey, for the people that live there.
Thank you. So, right at the very back.
Thank you. You said to me next, Lawrence.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you did.
And then right at the very back after that.
I just want to pull Dr. Marsh off, because I totally agree with you about, the hyperstroke units, and I totally agree with you about having all the acute things together and the whole team together. But maternity shouldn't be included. We don't need hyper-scientific, new, investigative, this, that, and the other. And for the very few people that do, they are quite early on in their pregnancy directed elsewhere anyway. And so you shouldn't be including maternity. That should stay at either end. It doesn't need a critical mass, and it should just be left. Not the arguments that you put forward about having it all on one side don't need to include maternity.
So we've already had quite a long conversation about maternity, but I'd just like to make one point. The discussions we've been having have been about what happens when things go wrong. And if things go wrong in maternity, they can go wrong quite quickly. And that's why we believe that maternity should be at the location. For the highest risk mothers, it should be at the site where the acute facility is,
It should be,
and have access.
It should be near enough to get to when those things go wrong. That's the critical point.
So the most critical point is during the delivery. That's when things go wrong quite quickly, and that's when you potentially need the access to all of the other support staff within the hospital.
But people deliver on the way, and they're not in ambulances. They're being brought by relatives by car, or they're on public transport. It has to be local. I'll let you get on.
Thanks, Rich. Right at the very back now.
Richard Baker, Councillor at Epsom Newell Borough Council. What I wanted to ask are just two questions. The first one is, I assume you've seen Chris Grading's letter by the MP for Epsom and Newell and our revered Minister of Transport about separating Epsom Hospital from St Helier and Sutton. Is this the way he wrote it was as if this was not exactly an order, but he said that he would want you to put this into effect now. Do you have to do this? Is this something you have to seriously to consider? And as I assume, you probably don't want this to happen, given the plans that you're putting before us this morning. And the second question is about where you will get this £400 million investment from. Seems a bit vague in the document. I'm assuming that you will only give us more details about this as and when the non-consultation period is over.
Shall I take the first part of the question? We've all lived through the history over the last 10 to 15 years about future strategic direction of this trust. And we've lived through a period where there was active exploration of the demerger of Epsom and St Helier. There is absolutely strong clinical consensus among the senior doctors and the senior nurses in this trust that we are stronger together as a single trust as Epsom St Helier. We've had over 150 of our consultants and senior nurses signing up to a statement that we feel very strongly that we should continue to operate as a single trust, and they're also supportive of having a single acute site.
But what about, is his suggestion, can you simply turn around and say no?
So Mr. Grading has clearly given his view and a suggestion about what should happen next. I have discussed with our regulators whether that is something they wish to consider currently, and everyone is clear that the conversation that we need to have at the moment is, can we garner sufficient support from our communities to suggest that a single acute specialist facility is the right thing to do? If we get to the place where we can't garner that support, and we end up with the scenario that Councillor Angus has talked about, which is scenario 6, which is where we don't secure that consensus and therefore can't secure the investment that we need, we're going to have that kind of conversation, because we're going to be in the place where this trust does not want to be, where we can't maintain providing hospital-based services on 2 sites in perpetuity in buildings that aren't fit for purpose. So we are really clear that the right thing for the 500,000 people that we serve and for the 5,000 staff who work here is we have to secure several £100 million of investment to provide a building that is fit for purpose to deliver healthcare for the sick patients. That's the conversation that we believe is the right one to have now. Imagine that we have that conversation and we get to the place where broadly that is the consensus. So we are convinced that we won't have a consensus about which of the 3 sites is the right one to do
now, that isn't the place we want to be. We want people to say it's the right thing for providing better healthcare that we have a single acute site. That enables us to get on to do the detailed work in the business case that will take many, many months. One of the questions we then have to answer in that is, so how would it be funded? And there are at least 4 different routes of funding that we can explore. One of which is the government funded. So every year, the NHS is getting £3 billion of capital investment. And to pull this off, in 1 year, we'd like 10% of it. And that doesn't seem such a big ask if we can get our communities to say that's what they want, given the state of the buildings. So that's Avenue 1. Then you had Paul Scully, who's the MP for Sutton, on the television on Monday, saying, well, Avenue 2 is, you have all these pension funds you're paying your private sector pension contributions into these funds who need to pay a pension. They're wanting to invest those funds in very low risk returns, very low risk ventures that give them a guaranteed return to enable them to pay out your pensions. They are very keen to invest in infrastructure, of which the hospital is one. So there is a scenario. There's also a scenario that local authority could build the hospital for us. And we've had conversations with several of them about that. And the last one is that you do some form of PFI. There's a new PFI that's nothing like as draconian to the NHS. It's called PF2. And that comes with part government, part private sector funding. So there are 4 routes that we could pursue. And if we get to the stage of writing the more detailed business case, we will evaluate each of them and talk to the various parts of the government about which one they would like us to do. And it would be fantastic to have got to that part of the conversation, because you know what? We'll then be on the place where people are saying they absolutely support us to have a new acute facility. So we've got to make the case first, then we can get on to how we would fund it.
Thank you. I'd just add that Jim Mackey, who is the Chief Executive of NHS Improvement, our regulator, was reported only yesterday as saying that now actually is a very good time to be able to borrow money because interest rates are so low. He acknowledges that the current government has an issue about putting borrowing onto the government balance sheet, but he has undertaken to continue pushing as hard as he can, and NHSI will continue to push as hard as they can to make the case that while interest rates are low, now is the right time to put the infrastructure of the NHS, and we're not just talking about us, we're talking about a huge amount of infrastructure of the NHS which needs to be replaced. I think it's important to appreciate that to deliver the NHS's STP, which is the key to unlock the 22 billion, there is a very, very large amount of capital investment that is going to be required. So my reading of it, I may be right, I may be wrong, but my reading of it is that the pressure on government to take the opportunity of low interest rates and to enable capital development throughout the NHS is probably going to continue to grow over the next 12 to 18 months, by which time we will be in a position to have far more ability to understand the options that we want to do formal consultation on. So it's not a bad time to be looking at these things, is I suppose what I'm saying. So let's go now, right. I'm leaping right across because you've had your hand up for a long time.
It's possibly a very simple question that may already be answered in the document we have in front of us that we haven't had time to read yet. But how many beds, how large is this new unit proposal?
So it's proposed that it's somewhere between 400 and 500 beds.
Thank you.
But then the second bit is...
Okay.
So we have 1,000 bed spaces currently across the 2 hospitals, and we envisage in 10 years' time we will still have 1,000 bed spaces across the hospitals. 400 to 500 will be in the brand new facility, and 400 to 500 will be in the existing buildings.
So broadly, our modelling says that there's an increasing demand for healthcare because there are more and more of us and we're getting older. But we can also look after more people in their homes and reduce length of stay. So if you look at the success of Epsom Health and Care in the last year, we have reduced the length of stay for older people on the Epsom side by almost 1 day. And we're now looking after 30 patients a day in their homes who would have been looked after in a hospital bed. So in our analysis, broadly, Epsom and St Helier has the same number of beds in a decade as it does now, and is costing the NHS the same percentage of its budget as it does now. Those are the assumptions we're working on.
Thank you. And what's the population growth likely to be in 10 years?
No, I can't remember the percentage each year. So I think we're thinking the population in total will have grown by about 3% in a decade.
In this area? In this area.
So we've taken all the demographics the ONS have given us, and we modelled them. The bigger issue in this area is less the population growing in terms of new people adding on, and more that people are living longer. That's so particularly in the south part of the patch. So it's quite interesting that the oldest population in Surrey is in between Epsom and Leatherhead.
But at the Merton meeting 2 or 3 nights ago,
they said 1% a year, which would be 10% over 10 years.
So Merton has a very different population to the one we serve. So remember, we only serve about a third of Merton, and it's quite stable, the third of Merton, because there isn't that much space to build new facilities.
So you're saying it's 3% over 10 years?
So when we sorry?
I think we don't actually know.
Yeah. So when
I think Daniel has not got that figure at his fingertip today.
Yeah.
Can you let us know that? Because I know you've done the study, so can you let us know? Yes, please.
When we've got the outline case in the public,
we will absolutely let you know that.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm now going, because we've only got a few minutes left, so I'm going to move on back to Bess. Thanks.
This past week there's been some very interesting information about stroke. It now states that 30 minutes is the best time to get treatment. And if you're going to make people travel a long way, they're going to lose a lot more of their brain power. Why are you talking about taking the stroke unit or the acute stroke unit away from Epsom, and they'll have to travel perhaps an hour? Perhaps you should read that. The second point is, you've given land's been taken at Sutton by Sutton Council, and they're building an academy. People are very concerned about the amount of traffic that's going to go along those narrow roads. How can you put a hospital there with that sort of infrastructure, and why, I don't understand, what is the purpose of having to be next to Marsden for treatment, and we get worse cancer services? What about technology? I bought a machine that they can put slides and things like that on a computer, and they can talk to people in Australia about it. So why can't you introduce this? Why does it have to be side by side?
So there are several points, just so quickly. So wherever we build a £300 to £400 million new hospital, we have to ensure that the access to it is appropriate. And there are issues with all 3 of our sites with access for different parts of our population. And part of the cost that we would incur in building the new facility is in being part of the infrastructure investment to improve access. So that's that point. On the subject of stroke, we are not meeting the quality standards now. So patients who come to the hyperacute unit at Epsom are not getting the standard of care that if you live in this part of the geography, you would get, because you go directly to St George's to be given thrombolysis or a thrombectomy. And everyone in Surrey wants the patients in the whole of Surrey to have the same access to great care for stroke as the people in London do. And there are 3 thrombolysis centres in Surrey area. One is going to be at St George's, one is at St Peter's, and one is at Surrey and Sussex Trust, so in Redhill. And CCAM, the ambulance service, have confirmed that they can pick up any patient in the geography of Epsom and take them to a thrombolysis centre within the required time frame and deliver all the standards. So that, we think, is going to be better for people who live in Epsom.
So we don't agree, do we?
Yeah, not true.
So, oh no, I have to put my hand up, don't I? Oh, what terrible.
It's all right, Bob. You can.
What a place.
All right. Sorry, Richard. Did you?
Let's finish the questions first.
Okay. All right. So let's go to Dave and then.
However you try and spin this, this is about removing acute services from one or both of Epsom Hospital and St Helier Hospital. And I noticed the attempt earlier to try to divide all people from St Helier, people from Epsom. We won't allow that to happen. We are not going to be divided on this. If this plan was about closing a hospital in Lincoln for the benefit of us, I would say no to that as well. I don't want Epsom Hospital to close in order to retain St Helier, or vice versa. Now, something that needs to be raised, and it's very important, I had a conversation at your estates engagement event a couple of years ago where you had the gallery walk, and I had a conversation with Charlotte where we were talking, about maternity services, and the conversation was you were explaining to me why it's really good to have consultant-led maternity services, and the conversation got to having it in one or other site. And I said, but surely you need consultant-led maternity services on both sites. And your reply to me was, we wouldn't make any money if we did that. Which I was horrified at, because you're a health service, you're not a business, you shouldn't be making money, you should be providing the service. So that I think needed to be raised again. Now, Daniel, you assured me at the first public briefing, which wasn't a public board meeting, you assured me that whenever this happened, there would be an option included in it detailing how much it would cost to put right what is in the existing buildings. I don't see that option in here, so I would like an answer on that one, please. There's been some discussion about centralisation of stroke services, and yeah, I agree, there's absolutely evidence for that. I haven't seen any evidence that centralising A&E or maternity services leads to better outcomes for patients, so again, I'd very much like to see some information on that. You mentioned earlier that you're the top trust in London, but that costs you £1 million to maintain that, £1 million extra in order to maintain the buildings, keep the buildings clean, etc. So that's £1 million per year extra. So you're talking about taking away acute services from one or both sites at the cost of 400 million, or there perhaps is an option to keep spending that £1 million extra a year for 400 years and remain the top hospital in London.
So Dave, if it was only an extra £1 million a year, that would be fantastic. £1 million a year is just on the cleaning.
I know.
Well, exactly. So why be so disingenuous then? Our deficit is huge, and by the time we get to 3 years' time, we'll be over £100 million. That is not sustainable. And the argument
the Department of Health allows it, Daniel.
The argument that we are making is not about reducing the NHS in our area. We are wanting to secure probably the biggest capital investment that will happen in London and the South East for a new facility for you and 499,000 other people.
I've already got 2 facilities and I want to keep them.
And we want to keep them too, which is why we have said in every scenario, 85% of the patients who use Epsom and St Helier will carry on using Epsom and St Helier.
But Daniel, come on, you can't say that, can you? You have been going on about Epsom saying it needs new boilers, we can't afford new boilers, we've got overheads at Epsom that we don't want to spend the money on. Yeah? So how come we're talking about 3 hospitals? or 2 hospitals. You know, there's something missing. There's something missing. Or am I going loopy?
Yeah. Richard.
Could I just make, it's not so much a question, but it's more an observation, and particularly from a non-executive standpoint. We consistently hear and understand the challenges and inefficiencies associated with our current configuration in the provision of our services today. This engagement exercise is about the future. This engagement exercise is about an evolving demographic. It's about an evolving provision of best quality health services in the area. There are clearly a wide range of diverse views and observations, and we see that in the comments that have come through today. But observing it from the board, there is an enormous amount of really hard, diligent work that the executive team have put in and continue to put into exploring what the range of options might look like for best quality provision of healthcare services for the future. This is the very, very beginning of an engagement exercise. It's about hearing the views and observations. Some of them will be at a very detailed level, and others will be of a much broader strategic level. But you know, I commend this engagement exercise to everybody, because this is so important to what the long-term future of the provision of healthcare services look like.
I accept that the board have worked very hard. I'm not so sure of why that hard work's been necessary.
As far as I'm concerned, what it looks like is that you've had to work really hard to find ways to save money because your budgets are continually being cut and the demands are continually growing. I think the board should be working hard to insist they get the money to do the job for the people. This is about a cost-cutting exercise and trying to spin it to us as a benefit. And I do not see it as a benefit to lose acute services. You've been talking for 5-6 years now about better care closer to home, but you're proposing moving the care that is needed most urgently further away from most of us. And that will not benefit us. And I'm sure it's been very hard work for you to find a way of cutting costs, but this should not be done. And it's not good enough, and it's not good enough for us. We've got a growing population, and we need the services closer to home.
But it cannot be right to continue spending money on this highly unsuitable building. They have to do something radically different to what's happened over the last 40 years.
But it's the best in London.
It's making it the best, despite all the problems it throws at them.
Then you should cost too much to eliminate the problems.
Well, I've just asked how much explosive it would cost to demolish the and I'm told the cost would be £3 million.
So
we're getting towards our time though. So there's 2 hands, so there's 2 further questions. 1, 2. So, first.
Thank you. Could I just clarify the time it would take? So when we're talking about a central, just like one acute unit, and if I understand it's that there would be ambulances that would be taking people to this unit. So how much time would it take an ambulance at rush hour to either get from Epsom to Sutton, from Epsom to St Helier, or vice versa? I mean, how much time are we actually talking about?
So clearly, it's quite hard to give that in one answer because it depends where you start from. We are confident that in each of the 3 scenarios that we have put on the table to discuss, the ambulances would be able to get a patient who is sick to the nearest hospital within the timescale that they believe is acceptable, so that the patient can get the best care in the right time. In some of the scenarios, that doesn't mean that the patient comes to Epsom or St Helier. So there's a conversation we have to have with all the other hospitals about what capacity they would need if we did some of those 3 scenarios. But we have put nothing to the public domain about scenarios which would compromise the ability of either South East Coast Ambulance or London Ambulance to take a patient to the appropriate A&E in an appropriate timescale.
Okay. Yeah, about the shape of the why are there so many single rooms? I mean, in my experience of hospitals, one thing that helps the patient to get through is the camaraderie between patients. I fear that so many being isolated will be causing a problem. I mean, I know some people like to be on their own, and privacy is obviously an issue, but you've got to come upstairs and it's difficult. I know, I've been in there. But I'm concerned that so many of these rooms will leave people isolated. Why is so many needed? I mean, infections, we don't have epidemics that often, do we?
So I'll give you two reasons. The first reason is infection control, because we have to isolate patients when they come in. Pardon?
Half of them?
With diarrhea and vomiting, and we currently only have 20% of our bed stock is single rooms. And most hospitals, all new hospitals, advised to have 50% single rooms. We also have, as you know, an ageing population, and we have dementia on the increase. And many of those patients become very distressed, and in an acute facility where you're trying to recover from surgery or an acute physical illness. Sorry.
I apologise.
It's very distressing.
It is, I agree with you, but at the same time, having that poor person stuck in a room on their own, still being distressed, and with no one else able to hear them to stand up for them and say, come on, do something to help this person. I mean, I've been in that situation where I've had to go and search for someone because this poor patient needs help, but I'm worried that people being isolated in these rooms won't get the help from the other patients that they would.
So that's about good nursing care.
It is, yes.
And one of the reasons we can't see all our patients at the moment, and they're not inside rooms, is because, as you know, we've got lots of dog legs on our ward.
I mean, you've still got some here where you won't be able to see from the nurse's station.
Well, I've never seen a nurse sit at a nurse's station for a long year. So actually, you may not have nurse's stations, but you have satellite stations in the bays or just looking into the bays. And that's what we're doing with our new estates work.
So how does the nurse see into all these private rooms? I mean, you say you've got to rearrange it so that the nurses has got every sick person inside and not have these nooks and crannies.
And yet you're talking about putting half the people in their own rooms with the door shut. So how are you observing them?
So we do what we call intentional rounding, comfort rounding, where your nurses are constantly walking around, checking the patients. We also know that we use a lot of nurses to special one-to-one.
So we've taken advice about what the NHS has built quite a few new hospitals in the last decade, and we have taken advice about what is the optimal ward layout. And what we put in this documentation is the optimal ward layout that balances the ability for the patients who want privacy and dignity, who want to be in a single room, with the patients who have to be in a single room because they're infectious, against the patients who would like to be in a 4-bedded bay. So there was a hospital built in Tunbridge Wells that was 100% single rooms on the NHS. And you know what? People didn't think it was the best thing because some people want to be in a 4-bedded bay. So you're right about that. And this layout means that you can have the right balance between the people who need and want to be in a single room, with the people who want to be in a bay, with the most optimum layout to enable the nurses to provide the best care. And that is what we aspire to have for all our patients. And the closest we've got to it in the trust is at Swanhild, which is why we featured it. And you never get complaints from patients about the nursing care or the environment that they are in, because it is absolutely as good as it could be. And that's what we want for everybody who has to be admitted into hospital.
Right, thank you. On that note, time has run away with us, and we have now got to finish the annual public meeting. Can I say, first of all, thank you all very much for coming. Thank you very much for the questions and for the debate, and please engage with the engagement. Please let us know your views. All your views are really, really important to us. And make sure that all your friends, your family and so on can also engage. We will be doing a lot of activity with staff, with the communities. As Daniel said, we're happy to go to any community group, any local authority meeting, Health Watch and so on, just to talk about this. By the time we get to the end of the summer, we will complete the engagement, and then we will have some analysis which we will be able to then take forward. But thanks very much for coming today. And
Can I just ask how you'll publicise the dates and times and venues?
Lisa, how are we going to do that?
We'll put them on the website and I'll email them round to everybody. So I will also use the residents' associations and the local newspapers to make sure we've got...
They go in the newspaper
Yes,
as well.
yeah. I'll make sure it's in the newspaper.
Good.
So I would just like to say that there are 800,000, is it, patients potential between both places. How many people are here? How many people are from Epsom? How many people are... I don't know. I have no idea. But you need to make sure that you...
We will do our best to reach out to
Sarah. Very, very...
On Twitter this week, we think we've got to 29,000 people through all the tweets that have been happening. I have personally spoken to hundreds of people this week already. There is clearly a big appetite for people wanting to hear what we have to say. So if you're part of a group and you'd like us to come and talk to your group, please ask us and we will come to wherever you need us to be.
Thank you all very much.